I'm Shayna Weber, and next to me in another room in another city is Jaron Lauder. We are going to give you some tips and tricks about pitching based on watching the last round of our pitch competition, right, Jaron?
Yeah, our pitch contest was kind of a huge success, and we were really taken aback by all the great stuff we saw that went on to have great success on the pitch panel. So we wanted we along with this video, we're going to have all those successful pitches linked that you can watch. But we wanted to talk about the good stuff we saw in those, but also some tips and tricks that based on stuff we saw on all the pitches that you can use and implement in the upcoming pitch panels that we're doing, because we have one I think coming up in a couple months, right?
Yes, I think in July.
Yep, and then we're doing one again in November for another pitch panel. So a lot of it is truly, like, we saw so many good ones. It just needed a few tweaks here and there, and hopefully tips. The way I put it is, all of these don't pertain to all of you. It's just a toolbox, and you can just kind of pick and choose which tips might help you in your pitch for the next one. And not even for us, for everybody. We recognize pitching your thing in 90 seconds is tough, but the better you get at it, the better it's just going to make all your pitches. So yeah, I guess we all kind of each had our own tips, and we'll just kind of go back and forth and riff on those a bit. And
do you want to just like overall say, let's just overall say to us what makes a good, like for me, what makes a good pitch?
Yeah.
For the most part is passion for your story. And I don't mean like when you're 8 years old, you started dancing passion. I mean, just like, your story, you care about your story, because the first person who has to care about the story is you. So if you care about the story and you like your story, that will come out. Especially, when you're doing this on video, you have to remember that it sucks the energy out of you when it's broadcast. Just that's what happens. So you kind of have to animate yourself a little bit bigger than you would being in a normal room. So you have to kind of like go inside the introvertedness you have and just pull out and just be a little bit more animated and, give us a little bit of inflection and things like that. And that really helps kind of sell the passion of the project.
Absolutely. I think my overall tip is kind of part and parcel with that, and that's voice. That has to do with passion. Every story has been told before. Every pitch has been pitched. It's kind of more about your angle in. We look for that in writing too. So in the pitches, it's that extrapolated. It's that tenfold. It's your passion and your voice can make any story come to life. One of the most successful ones we had was Jake, and their story was really, it was a bunch of people that worked in a bagel shop and hanging out in trials and tribulations of coming out. And, but what Jake did was they added so much voice and personality to it that everyone was like, I want to watch that show. Based on just
heart.
And heart, yeah, for
Jake
sure.
Jake just exemplified sort of the heart and soul of the project. And we knew immediately that Jake was the one to write the story because it was very personal.
That's a good point. They were the one to write that story for sure. It was the same across all those pitches. Rachel. He has a similar last name, Jasmine. Rachel's pitch for Violet, completely opposite tone, opposite in every way. It was a video pitch. It was so slick and professionally done. Very heavy material. Kind of a sad, melancholy tone, but similarly, she just pitched it with so much personality and heart that it was just like, that's going to do amazing. And it did. Similarly, she got requests to be read, and so it's like, you're right. It's all about personality and voice, and
that's interesting about Rachel too, is because the topic was a heavy kind of melancholy topic that you don't necessarily, you're not going to go in and being like, hey guys, here's my story about, this. Right. But what she did was she made you feel that, but then it felt like, hey, she's come through this. So this is a story of coming through something and sort of finding yourself. And so it worked.
Yeah, exactly. And to add to that, the tone of her pitch, even though it was video stuff spliced together with her on camera was lit, and it was atmospheric, and it was an atmosphere that matched the tone of it. She knew exactly the personality of that pitch, that personality you're talking about, Shayna. She knew exactly the personality of that pitch, as did Jake did with theirs,
Yeah.
as did. And so that really is, you're right, it's kind of the number one thing. It's just.
And what Rachel also did, because she's a filmmaker, is she
Yeah.
put her own footage in there, which is an added selling point. That
For sure.
wasn't, it didn't really pertain to this particular contest that we did, pitch contest, but in general, if you're going to do that and you do have your own footage and it does match, throw that in there, because that just adds another layer
Yep.
to the whole thing for you.
Yep.
Pitching yourself on top of your project.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's actually a really good, what you just said. It's a great point, Shannon, because you are pitching yourself. I mean, you're pitching your project. You got to get people interested in that project, and obviously you want people to put money behind that project, but you're pitching yourself in a lot of ways, because your filmmaking is a collaboration. So all these people are going, is this someone I want to work with? Can I work with them? So that's a really good point too, Shayna.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into some of the more nitty gritty tips.
All
you
right.
want to go first?
Sure. I guess we'll just start with the basics. When you're doing a video pitch, especially, I mean, you can't do it so much in a room, but when you're doing a video pitch, try not to read off of your paper completely, because as I said before, reading and being on video together, your energy level just drains, and you just look like you are reading off a piece of paper. And if we aren't invested in you telling your story, then we'll just click stop. Not that we did, we watched everything, but you know what I mean? Like if somebody's
An
watching
executive
that,
will.
yeah, and you're
stop.
just reading off a piece of paper, then why are you doing a video? You might as well just send a piece of paper and hope that somebody will read it. So I was a reality TV producer. And what I always would tell people in interviews is, you have to animate yourself a little bit more. So don't read off your paper, and kind of sit straight up, get yourself ready, and just give it everything that you have.
Yeah. The reading thing, I think I would put it, people always say, like, you don't like hearing other people's dreams, right? It's just think about, do you want someone to just sit in front of you and just start reading a page from a book that you have no idea what that book is? That's essentially what you're doing. And a lot of them where it was, you have such a great idea and there's a seed there and you're like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And then you just read the plot. To go back to just injecting personality, it's so hard to inject personality when you're just reading the plot of your thing off of a piece of paper. I would suggest, obviously, if you need to read to get everything into 90 seconds, have some bullet points, have some major things you want to hit that you can have in front of you. Absolutely. But I would fill those gaps in just free-forming it. Practice, getting from A to B. But it's the reading thing is definitely, it doesn't translate well over a screen like this.
Right.
It wouldn't translate in a live pitch either, but even less so on a screen.
Yeah. And I mean, you have 90 seconds, so you should be practicing it before you record it so that it's going to fit into the 90 seconds. But if you're practicing it enough, you should not have to read off a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So
I guess it feels like you should look at it almost like if you're sitting around with friends and you tell them a story, or you tell them a funny story or a story that happened to you or something, that's essentially a pitch. You're pitching people on this story. That's how it should be as you're pitching to us too, or you're pitching to executives or whatever. When you tell your friends a story, you're not going, hold on guys, I've got a great story, and then you read your story to them that happened to you, It's
you're gonna lose some friends.
You'll lose all of them. It's happened to me. I have no friends.
Jaron knows from experience. All right, Jaron, what's your tip?
My biggest tip, the one that this came from actually your friends, Shayna. I saw this first, I think Mika, the writers of The Curse of La Llorona, who had come.
Mickey and Tobias.
Mickey and Tobias. It's character. And I know you have something to say about world and character and all that stuff, which is, but it absolutely makes sense what you start with, but it's always going to be, we're going to be invested in the character. When you watch a good movie, people always, they remember movies because of the characters. The way that Mickey and Tobias put it is they learn through doing this through experience. The best way to pitch is go, here's this character, here's the problem they have. And once someone's invested in that character, then you can just go, here's what happens to them. That's the plot. But people are going like, what you want to get people to do is to lean forward and go like, oh, I care about this character now. Tell me what happens to them. That's when you go into the plot. That's when people, and then they're invested. Then they go, well, this turn happens, this turn happens. I just think character, no matter what your character is. As we were talking about with Jake's characters, like it's not like a lot happened to them. It wasn't a plot heavy thing, but I know they described a big gay Yoda at one point as one of their characters, and everyone in the comments, everyone's like, that's great. I can immediately see that character. I want to watch that character.
Yeah. So on that note, like, find the thing about your character that, if it's a comedy, makes somebody laugh. If it's a drama, makes it deep. Like, what's the characteristics about your protagonist that makes them stand out?
Right.
And put that in there so that we can start in our brain and our mind, when we're visualizing what you're telling us, you have to set that up so that we go, oh, when you say a gay Yoda character, we're like, oh, got it.
Right.
Easy
exactly.
peasy.
Easy. I think it helps even when you're writing. It's something we all have to think about and remind ourselves. But when you're setting something up, you're setting your next story up. It's this is the character, this is the problem. I think the best way, another good way I thought described is when you and I, Shanna, had on Sam Thompson and David Wappel on our ISAPresents. Sam Thompson was describing his script, Blood Sugar, which we love, which can be pitched as a zombie movie, right? Like, this is the zombie apocalypse, this is what happens. That's kind of boring to me. But the way he pitched it is like, well, it's a mom and his daughter has his daughter. It's a mom, her daughter has diabetes. She needs insulin. She's running out. They're in the midst of an apocalypse. How does she get to insulin? That's a problem for the character. You're already set up with their relationship, whatever. Then the plot is in direct opposition to that character goal. What happens if he has to go out there and there's zombies out there? And I think that's a great way to describe a zombie film, rather than it's a zombie thing, here's what happens, here's the apocalypse, blah, blah, blah. And it started from a character perspective. I feel like that was very convoluted, but you know what I'm saying.
No, I get it. Because what they did, what he did was started with character and their problem, so that you know that. Then gave us the world that they're in, which added stakes to the already big problem that they have, that she needs insulin. So then you say, and then it's set in a zombie apocalypse. And then you're like, ow, there you go, new idea.
Right. Yep. People lean forward and they're like, oh, okay, need to get insulin. Great. That's the stakes. Okay. And then you go, bam, there she's in a zombie apocalypse. Then people are like, oh, I could see it now. That's the movie. That's great. I see the stakes. I see the whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So that'd be my big tip is character.
And in that same, vein about sort of your character and then creating your world, you can do it the opposite way also. So if you have a big world, say it's a sci-fi or fantasy movie, and it's similar to, you can start with, it's similar a world as Battlestar Galactica or whatever. So then we go, okay. And then you can narrow it down and say, and in this world, there's so-and-so, and that's the character, and then go into their specifics. So if you need, you can do it either way, depending on your story of what's, how can you create the world for your listener, for your audience.
Excellent point. Yeah. It's creating a world and then dropping a compelling character into that world where that world affects that character. That's it.
Because one of the things that I saw in a lot of the pitches that I watched was the problem for me in a lot of them was it wasn't that it was a bad story or a bad idea. It was, I couldn't picture it. And by the time I got to a point where I could go, oh, then they were already, the whole time was over. And I couldn't quite wrap my head around what I was visualizing or what I was going to see on the screen. So you always just have to remember that this is visual, and it's show us, don't tell us. Even though you're telling us, you still have to show us in your words what we're seeing.
Right.
kind of alluded to.
No. It absolutely makes sense. No, for sure. It's a good point. This is a visual medium. It's hard. That's the part of this that's hard, the storytelling part. And you're trying to set up a visual world. But yeah, it's like, I mean, George Miller didn't start with like, I have this character Mad Max in Furiosa. He started with the world, the apocalyptic world, and built that out. And then it was like, these are the characters that fit in the story I want to tell within that world.
Right.
Going the opposite route too. Those are the two important things. It's your world and then your characters, and how those interact and coincide is kind of your story. That's what creates the plot.
Right.
Cool. What's your next point, Shayna?
Let's see. My next one is make sure that you have, I mean, I guess one of the big ones is, this is always kind of a question. How much do you give away in your pitch? In 90 seconds, you can't give a ton away, but you have to give enough so that we understand that there's a twist, or there's something that happens that is not normal, that, raises the stakes, that throws things off, that throws your character into a crazy world or a situation. We have to know, and then we have to know towards the end that there's a big moment. There's something that happens that changes it again, I guess.
Right.
Right.
Which is,
and you don't have to give away everything, but you have to give enough so that it's not just, well, this is a story about a girl who goes back in time and meets a man and, blah, blah, blah. Like we have to know something bigger, because we've seen that story. We've probably seen or heard every story. So.
Right. And that ties into going back to everything we said, is your personality and your voice and your characters and all that stuff. Is like, you can set up a first act that's absolutely like 1,000 things we've seen before. But then it's when you're telling us like, bam, and then this happens in act 2. And we go, oh, wow, that's fresh. And then act 3, there's this turn.
Right.
That's how you personalize it and make it fresh and make it seem like, well, that's a spin on something I've seen, but that's what people love, is a twist on something they've seen, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Good point. Okay.
All right. Your turn.
My turn. This doesn't pertain to everyone, but I personally saw a lot of writers send in multiple pitches for a lot of ideas. And I'll just say that I got a little frustrated, because a lot of those ideas were good ideas and there was something there, but they weren't developed enough, because they were just so wanting to get on to the next one. And I realized that is, it's good to have that many ideas and keep working on stuff. But for these pitches, you really have to spend the time to develop them and do all these tips we've talked about, and personalize them and make us care. Because a lot of them were just like, well, here's this idea. It's, a group of friends go to a beach house and they do this. And then that was kind of it. And then it's like, there's 9 other pitches still to go from the same writer. And it's kind of like, well, just spend some time on a couple that you really care about. And like we just said, any story can be made extraordinary, or like something we want to see, but you just got to spend the time to do that. So I would say focus on a couple of your pitches. And this isn't just one, there was a lot of writers did this, and a lot of them were so close. A lot of the pitches were like, this is really good. I wish you would have spent just a little bit more time crafting that. So that would be my next tip. All
right. I don't really have that many more tips.
Okay.
From me personally, I think the last one that I'll say is, if you do have a big action movie, or it's something that you have really great set pieces, in there, which are those big events, like I forget his name. What's his name, Jaron? Who did
Kevin.
Kevin, who pitched about the pit, and we got to see him start with one pitch and learn. And then by the time he pitched the panel, it was much better. So what he did was his major set piece is that they get stuck in this big pit pool between the mother and the killer. And for her to get out of that pit, she had to pull the ribs out of people and use them like pegs.
Out of corpses,
and use those as pegs to climb up and out. I mean, that is like visually, 1, disgusting, and 2, I've never seen that before, and that excites me.
Yeah.
So, and what he did with that is then, from learning that he needed that towards the end, he put in at the beginning a little bit more for his character, that she was a CrossFit nut and she was, you know, athletic and she did all this crazy training and everything. So that by the time he got to that great moment, you understood that she was capable of doing that. And that was a big dramatic, you know, moment.
It's a great point. Those big set pieces that are really going to wow people, those are like the specific set pieces that no one's seen before. Absolutely include those in your pitch. You want to really get to those beats. And what Shayna's bringing up is it was really cool getting to see that pitch take formation. Because Kevin brought it up on our webinar and pitched it, and was in kind of guide. He was just like, well, it's a mom and a daughter, and the mom they get abducted. She falls in a pit with the killer. They have to get out. That's a good setup. That's a good hook, obviously. But then she was helping Kevin to personalize it. Well, who is the character? Who is the mom? She's a CrossFitter. She's overcome cancer. She has these problems with the daughter. And then how do they get out of the pit? And that's when Kevin brought up the ribs, and because she can CrossFit and all that stuff. And she was like, well, you should absolutely put that in the pitch. And it was so gratifying seeing that when he got to that part, when he actually refined it and put that in the pitch on the pitch panel, all of the panelists, you can see the big reaction. They like loved it.
They leaned forward.
Yeah, some of them were laughing. Some were like, that's great. For sure. And he didn't initially have that in his initial pitch. So, but it was kind of seeing that all come together, is personalize it. Only he would come up with that idea. Right. Put the characters at the top, a little bit more about them, then the hook, and then this big set piece, and it all came together, and it was a very successful pitch. So yeah, good point. I don't really have any more either. I think we kind of hit on everything.
I think the last thing is, like, we totally understand that talking to yourself into a screen or your phone or whatever is weird. It's weird. It's uncomfortable. Pitching in general is uncomfortable, you know, but you got to find, okay, for me personally, like, I started hosting some webinars for ISA. Did I want to do it? No. Do I really like being on camera? No. Do I like staring at myself right now while I'm talking? No, not really. But I found something in me that makes it work. And I just said, okay, suck it up and do it and try to have fun with it. And that's what I did. And I figured out that I'm a little bit dorky. I'm a little bit goofy, you know, and that's what works for me to do it. So you got to, like, I mean, if it takes practicing, recording yourself and watching it back and seeing how ridiculous you look, or showing somebody else and seeing where they laugh, where they, you know, where they make facial expressions, that just practice, because you will get better. It will become a little bit easier. Not saying it's super fun or the thing you want to do the most in the world, but just keep practicing. Because if you want to pitch and you want to do this is how you're gonna have to start. So
amazing point, because not only is it practice in general, but this isn't changing. The pitching over Zoom and the pitching on video and stuff, it's going to be even more of an industry standard after all of this, which we found out for sure. We were just talking about Kevin, and he does a lot of documentaries. He's good at pitching. He's gotten people's money and stuff. He really wanted to come out for our fast track. He was a fast track fellow. He really wanted to come out and pitch in the room. We just couldn't do it because of what's going on. But watching him over the week do all these Zoom pitches and have such great success, and learning from all these executives and stuff, that this is going to be the way it's going to keep going forward. It was everything you're saying in a microcosm. It's just watching people get used to it, embracing it, and getting better at it. So that's why doing these pitch competitions it's so great for us to see how many. It's just like, oh my God, there's so many awesome stories out there that we want to push. Like, you guys are all great, but also it's just great practice for you guys, not only just in a general sense of pitching your material, but like literally pitching on video to people is going to be industry standard going forward. So you're right. And the other thing you're right about, Shayna, is like, it's an easier time ever to practice, literally practice, because you can record yourself and see yourself exactly how you're going to show up. Right? Like we're recording this right now. We can watch it back and go like, that's how I see him on camera. Right. So it's not, you know, absolutely you should get other people's opinions. You should Zoom to your friends and pitch and do all that stuff too. But you can literally just do it no stress to yourself. Just record yourself pitching,
Mm-hmm.
see how it looks, and refine.
Yep.
Yeah, great point.
All right.
One last thing. I know you
Okay.
said that was the last thing. On one of our finalist pitches, which we really loved, we'll let you guys watch to find out. We loved everything about it, and she did say, she was like, "Our comps is this meets Killing Eve," and we just wanted to say, for all of us, it threw us a little bit, because we were like, Killing Eve, we don't see that at all. And it's a small thing, and it didn't ultimately matter because it was a great pitch, and she's a finalist still. But if you're gonna throw your comps in there, and make sure they're either ironclad, you know why you're pitching those comps, or say it's like Killing Eve in that the characterizations of this character kind of match what I'm trying to do or whatever, because the pitch itself wasn't Killing Eve, and so it kind of threw us. So I think,
and if you're going to do comps, it has to be universally well-known film or TV show that you're comping, or else, we won't have a clue.
Right.
It can't be some obscure film that you saw, when you were 17 and it's straight to video. Like, you can't do that.
Right.
I mean, we all know Killing Eve, but that one did throw us off. We were like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And it just kind of like, the thing is, it makes a turn, and it makes us kind of step back and go. And then the problem is that you stop listening for 5 seconds, because in your own brain, you're going, how's it like Killing Eve?
Yeah. It takes you out.
It takes you out. And then it's really hard to get back in once you're out. We did, because the whole pitch was great.
Yeah.
But
again, great pitch. Finalist.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was just one little thing that was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Yeah, in a story about fighting for renters' rights and all that stuff. You're like,
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like, wait.
Anyway, so another tip, if you're going to use comps, and you absolutely should use comp titles for sure, but make sure that they're the right comp titles.
Especially in 90 seconds, because it's a very fast way for us to visualize the world that we're seeing.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, I mean, that was all the tips. I think Shana and I were honestly, the whole team was kind of like, wow, we got a lot of really good stuff. It was really fun to watch. It makes our jobs fun. We're just kind of, grateful and happy that you guys there's so many of you out there. Great
And
voices.
even the not so good ones, I mean, bravo, honestly, for just putting yourself out there, because that's amazing in itself.
Exactly.
And not everyone does that. So
yeah.
So
So
keep
we
practicing.
can't wait. Keep practicing. We can't wait to see the next ones.